Hello and welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is like deadline day. I'm Sophie Evans and I'm joined by the busiest man in football, GiveMeSport senior football correspondent, Ben Jacobs. How are you doing, Ben?
Everything is good. Transfer news, FIFA scandal, and a big show ahead as both Fabrizio Romano and, in an exclusive interview, the British Prime Minister is with us as well.
We really have got it all. Ben bringing us the latest breaking news. And as he just mentioned, we're also joined by the man in the know, Fabrizio Romano, to update us on the transfer market. And we'll also chat all things Manchester United with football reporter and presenter Ian Irving. And if that wasn't enough, like Ben just said, we've got the Prime Minister Andy Burnham as he gives his thoughts on Gianni Infantino and FIFA. This is going to be a strapping show. Sit down, grab a cup of tea. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. And here we go. Joining us live, we've got Fabrizio Romano. Fabrizio, how are you?
Ciao. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Very good.
Well, you're a busy man. Let's get straight into it. First off, Vini Jr. now looks set to stay at Real Madrid. Can you tell us more about this crazy situation?
Yeah, to me, it's never been so crazy. I mean, it's a negotiation over a new contract. Obviously, when you have a top player like Vini, in terms of financials, obviously, it's always takes time to reach an agreement. Imagine Vini is probably going to sign a contract worth slightly less than 25 million euros net. Then there is image rights. So obviously, it's always a complicated contract to agree in terms of timing. But then in terms of intention, it's always been the intention of Vinicius Jr. To continue playing for Real Madrid. And it's always been the intention of Real Madrid to reach an agreement with Vini, especially from the president. Florentino Perez has been pushing a lot for Vinicius to stay, and also the coach, Jose Mourinho. So now the agreement is really at the final stages. There are still a few details to clarify, so it's not done yet, but it's on the right way. They are closing in on the final details, so I expect this to be closed in the next hours, days, could be any moment.
And staying with Spain for the second question, is there an El Clasico battle shaping up for Rodri?
Yeah, there was, because now this battle is going clearly in the direction of Barcelona. Real Madrid have been trying over the recent days to be in negotiations, in conversations with Manchester City. After at the beginning of the market, Real Madrid were not convinced about proceeding for Rodri. The World Cup changed their mind, especially the president, Florentino Perez, decided to change his mind and give the green light to the negotiations. They spent 7 days in negotiations with Man City, but City decided to wait before accepting any proposal from Real Madrid, because they had the feeling more clubs could join the race, and now Barcelona are there. And Barcelona have the green light from Rodri. So Rodri is prepared to say yes to Barcelona after speaking to the coach Hansi Flick, after speaking to the director Deco, after speaking to the teammates. Many of them are from the Spanish national team, so the connection is very good. Now Rodri is keen on the move to Barcelona, open to negotiating, and so I think this deal is going to move now fast. Obviously, still club-to-club negotiations needed between Barca and Manchester City, but a big surprise, because Barcelona are getting closer to signing Rodri.
Fabrizio, just following up on that, is there any scenario where Man City keep Rodri? We know under Pep Guardiola, when he was in charge, he wouldn't always stand in players' ways, but Enzo Maresca arguably needs Rodri more than ever. So how will Manchester City approach having two Spanish clubs seeking Rodri, and what kind of price, if they sell, do you think they're looking for?
I think it's going to be more than 50 million euros, because Real Madrid last week indicated 50 million euros as the price they wanted to discuss, and City wanted more than that. So I think we are around 65 million euros. That's just my opinion, my feeling, not something official from Man City, but I think it's going to be in the region of 70 million euros. And then in terms of player side, he knew about Manchester City intention to try extend the contract. They tried in April, in March, also during the summer transfer window, while the player was at the World Cup contacting his agent. But now the clear feeling from Rodri is that he wants to go back to Spain. Rodri was waiting for the opportunity to go back to Spain. The point is that at the beginning of the market, again, Real Madrid were not convinced. Barcelona were busy with different things. So Rodri was considering the possibility to discuss again with Man City over new contract, because from Spain there was no concrete discussion. But now with Barcelona pushing hard, Real Madrid tried last week, Rodri is giving priority to Spain. So I don't think Rodri will sign a new deal.
Let's talk Liverpool. Barcola and Bay, is a double signing possible? And then a bit more broadly, we're hearing links with Ezri Konsa and Liverpool. We know Arsenal have looked at him in the past, and even some suggesting that Jed Spence would be open to a move to Liverpool. What's the latest from Liverpool, and are they going to be one of the busiest Premier League clubs between now and the end of the window?
They will be busy for sure, I'm sure. Then on some of the names you asked me, on Konsa, I'm told there is more interest from Arsenal than Liverpool at this stage, but let's see, still long. I think both clubs will be keen on defenders, so there will be movements from now to the end of the window. Just Spence, at the moment, I don't have any concrete information on Liverpool, to be honest. So let's see if they will jump into the race, but at the moment I'm told there is not something concrete between Just Spence and Liverpool so far. And then talking about the wingers, for sure this is the main focus. They want to do something there. There is genuine interest in Ibrahim Baye. There is a conversation with the new agent of the player, Jorge Mendes. Bayer Leverkusen were pushing, but now Liverpool are leading the race for Ibrahim Baye. Let's see if financially they can reach an agreement with PSG. And then Bradley Barcola. Barcola has always been the top target for Liverpool. There is no doubt. Liverpool will go very strong for this one. Then it's about reaching a financial agreement with PSG. The conversations club to club have already started, are already underway, but for sure, it's important to say that Barcola wants to go to Liverpool. Barcola always had this clear in mind, and Liverpool always had Barcola as a top target, so he was never untouchable this summer, and now he's absolutely in these negotiations with Liverpool, so I think personal terms will not be an issue.
And elsewhere in the Premier League, are Tottenham making any progress on deals to sign Savinho and Gakpo?
They're working on it. It's not easy because obviously Man City, before letting Savinho go, they want a replacement. That's the point. But Savinho is really pushing to go to Tottenham. So I think this deal can happen because Roberto De Zerbi is also pushing a lot to have Savinho as soon as possible. And the player is super keen on the move. So the conversation is underway between the two clubs. There is already an agreement with the player. And Savinho is telling every day Man City and the coach Enzo Maresca to have the opportunity to go and join Tottenham. For Gakpo, I think it really depends on the financial package because Liverpool never wanted to sell Gakpo. It's never been a priority this summer. So they're very happy with Gakpo, also Andoni Raiola, the board. So if a big proposal financially arrives and if the player is keen on the move, Liverpool could consider this possibility. Otherwise, they're not desperate to sell Gakpo. So that's why the situation is, at the moment, I would say 50-50, but Tottenham are trying. Tottenham are there. Tottenham are talking with the agents. So I think there is still a chance to see this and good chances to see this happening.
And elsewhere in Tottenham, do you think they're going to sign a striker this summer?
This depends on the opportunities because, for example, they had conversations with Manchester City also about Omar Marmoush at the beginning of the window. Then, obviously, City don't want to lose too many players. Also, it's not easy to find strikers on the market. So if you let Omar Marmoush go, then to find another striker at Manchester City level, okay, they have Erling Haaland, but to have a proper backup is not easy. So at the moment, that's the point. It's not easy to find top strikers on the market. Tottenham at the moment, according to my information, are completely focused on the wingers. So wingers are the top priority and they will sign two. Then if they will have a budget and good opportunity to sign a striker, we will see. But at the moment, the focus remains on wingers.
Let's move on to Manchester United, Fabrizio. I think we all maybe thought they would have had one or two more players through the door by now, but it's an inflated market and I don't see them panic buying. Where are their next priorities and how many signings do you think they'll make between now and when the window closes?
I think this will depend again on the budget. As you say, it is not easy in this market to find the right opportunities. They wanted ideally a third midfielder. Let's see if the right opportunity comes because we know what happened with Ederson. Was a done deal and then collapsed. Now they are still exploring the market. So let's see what happens for the midfielder position. Then they are looking at left backs. So I think also in that position there could be some movement in the next weeks. It's not easy for Luis Hall because Newcastle now want to keep the player after making profit with Bruno Guimaraes, but for sure Man United are looking at that position. That's for sure. And then up front it depends on Marcus Rashford. But at the moment what I'm hearing is that Rashford is not keen on kind of moves with the rumors we have on Al Nassr, on Fenerbahce. Rashford is open to staying at Manchester United, and I'm told that Michael Carrick would really be keen on the possibility to work with Rashford again. So I think there are good chances to see Rashford staying and Man United focusing their effort even financially on different positions.
Just a quick word on Chelsea as well. Is it fair to say Pep Chavaria is close? And then in terms of outgoing, some reports suggest Axel Disasi and Crystal Palace, Mikhailo Mudryk, maybe all options are on the table. I think you reported exclusively a few days ago, Tosin could go, Badi Ashil potentially as well. Chelsea have got a lot of exits, haven't they, to work on?
Yeah, they do, absolutely. In terms of incomings, I expect Pep Chavaria to be a Chelsea player this summer. They still need to discuss the add-ons of this deal with Rayo Vallecano. They will pay around 19 million euros. It's about the add-ons now, but the conversation is well advanced. And then in terms of exits, after Chalobah to Como, it's going to be time for Badiashile because there is an active conversation with Napoli, but they also have different options. For Tosin, there is interest in England and not only, so there could be a possibility for him to go. Then there is Marc Guiu, who is going to leave the club. So I think for Chelsea, still going to be busy. For Nico Jackson, for example, interest from Aston Villa and not only. So I'm sure for Chelsea, in terms of outgoings, is going to be very busy. And then we will see if there is space for some more incoming also after Pep Chavaria.
And just finally, Fabrizio, Bruno Guimaraes has left such a hole at Newcastle United. Who could they look to bring in to replace him?
Well, now the conversation is ongoing with the coach, Matthias Geisele. One of the players they appreciated, for example, is Lucas Bergvall. They were looking at him because he might leave Tottenham in the summer transfer window. He's a player who was already approved by Eddie Howe. Let's see now with the new coach, Matthias Geisele, over the next 2-3 days, they will have more meetings and decide which kind of player they want to add to their squad. Bergvall could be an option, not the only one, but I'm sure Newcastle will do something in that position because obviously they lost Bruno and they need a top midfielder. So they are working on that for sure.
Fabrizio, before I let you go, just a really quick one. Which window's been crazier? Last summer, which we thought was madness, or this summer?
Look, I think this one is going to be crazier, to be honest. From now to the end, I think we will have 2-3 big stories. It's going to be really, really busy. So this one will also be full of surprises, like Arne Slot, Cucurella, so many stories out of nowhere. And I'm sure there is going to be more. So this one, I think, is going to be crazier.
Thanks for all those updates, Fabrizio. Great to have you with us, as always. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Thank you.
Now, we have an incredibly exciting exclusive across the GiveMeSport network with the British Prime Minister Andy Burnham. GiveMeSport reporter Sam Cohen is now joining me. Sam, how did this opportunity come about? What was it like? Burnham.
Yeah, well, it actually started with what was a pretty crazy idea. Obviously, it's quite well known that the Prime Minister is a massive football fan and a lifelong Everton supporter. So I thought maybe we should reach out to number 10 and ask whether he'd be willing to do a football-only interview with us at GiveMeSport. And to their credit, they really liked the idea and they were brilliant to work with throughout. And yeah, meeting him was really cool, but you know, we weren't there to talk politics. We were there to talk specifically about football, and you can tell how passionate he is about the game and all his work that he's done in it.
There's a slight echo coming. It's because we have to hear the story twice. Look, was that the biggest interview you've ever done? You feeling a bit nervous beforehand?
Hopefully that's a bit better. Is that a bit better?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, biggest interview. Yeah, I'd say so. I've been lucky enough to interview some good footballers, some past and present managers as well. But you know, obviously interviewing the Prime Minister at number 10 North is obviously on another level. So yeah.
Well, look. Let's have a little look at what that conversation looked like.
Hello everybody, I'm Sam Cohen and I'm about to sit down with the Prime Minister Andy Burnham to talk about Gianni Infantino, his beloved Everton and the World Cup. Here we go.
Hi Sam. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you as well. You alright? Yeah, you good, yeah.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us on GiveMeSport. Why do you feel that Gianni Infantino is the wrong man to lead FIFA?
Just the direction FIFA has gone under his leadership, and the plan to sell off the World Cup to investors really just cements the feeling that he's not leading the organisation in the right direction and therefore not taking the game on the right path. So it's a feeling I've had for a while, but it's clearly not a sustainable situation. When UEFA and CONCACAF can't have confidence, that is a large chunk of world football saying that this is not acceptable.
I think most fans would agree with you. And then you said there that you were having this feeling for a long time. So is this the final straw for you to say enough's enough?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it is. I had some concerns about the 2022 World Cup and, you know, on the pitch and all the rest of it. It didn't feel right. It hasn't felt right. And after everything that FIFA had been through before, I was prepared to give his era the benefit of the doubt, and I did give it the benefit of the doubt until this point.
Fair enough. And FIFA are insisting that they're not selling football. That's not what this proposal is about. So what would you say your perspective is as both a football fan and the Prime Minister?
My perspective is that football needs to be protected from being completely overtaken by commercial interests. At the end of the day, it is about the joy of the sport, using the power of football to redistribute as much as possible back to the grassroots of the sport. It feels as though people have forgotten that at the top of the game, and they see it as yet another vehicle to make money. If football becomes that, and it is only that, then it kills the thing that we've all grown up loving.
For sure. I want to move you on to something that you're very passionate about. Prior to becoming Prime Minister, you worked tirelessly to support Hillsborough families. How has that experience shaped your views on how football should be governed today?
It was more how the country should be governed, because there you had an entire English city crying injustice correctly for 20 years, and yet the country wasn't listening. And it took the 20th anniversary of Hillsborough and the call for justice for the 96, now 97, from the COP to basically break through that kind of wall of lies and silence. It is something that really remains the most instrumental moment in my political journey, having been at the other semi-final on the day at Hillsborough, known people who were at the game, and then having kind of lived through what happened after it. It is unbelievable, actually, that could stand for so long and a completely false version of events be left hanging around that was slanderous to the people of Liverpool. And it lasted all of those years until the 2016 second inquest, when Liverpool supporters were completely exonerated on every count of any behaviour that may have contributed to what happened. It didn't in any way contribute. And it's just so wrong that this country could have let that stand for all of those years.
I think you spoke on behalf of everyone in football when you said that. And moving on to something that you've also been passionate about before you've taken office is dementia in football as well. Do you think enough is being done to support former players and to protect future generations? And now that you're Prime Minister, how do you think that you can, support this further?
I don't think enough has been done. I've supported the Football Families for Justice campaign, and I look at what has been done in the NFL, where they have faced up to the issue and taken a much more front foot approach to dealing with it and supporting those who've been affected. I don't see that yet from English football. The number of players, particularly from the 60s, 70s, 80s, who've developed dementia is huge. Their stories and their family stories are devastating. I know there have been some modest moves, but I don't believe it's enough, and I will continue to support them to get some support. It to me should be like an industrial injuries compensation scheme, because people were not protected, and they weren't properly informed or supported, and particularly when the game has made so much money built by the people of that era. We're not talking about massive money, but we are saying that those people, the game should recognise its duty to support those people, and I'll continue to support that call. I did as Mayor, I will do it as Prime Minister.
We are now 2 years out from the Euros back on our soil. What do you think the benefit will be to Britain?
Well, there'll certainly be a benefit to Everton Football Club when the Euros take place at our new stadium, something I'm looking forward to very much indeed. But if I should speak for the country in these moments, I think it will be fantastic for us. I think English football is getting stronger all of the time. Third place in the World Cup is an incredible springboard to go from that tournament into the Euros. I feel there's a very good chance we can do it. We are there. We are very, very close. Perhaps the World Cup overall result was probably fair on the basis of our performances, but on a different day, in a different tournament, we could win it. We're getting that close, and I feel we will get over the line pretty soon.
Somebody that helped England in the World Cup was Harry Kane. England captain, massively helped the team. It looks like potentially the Euros could be his final tournament. I just wanted to know what you thought about him, the legacy he might leave behind.
He deserves a trophy, given his level that he's put in for England. He is the best striker we've seen since Alan Shearer. I think he has been phenomenal. And it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, to see Harry go out on that note.
I can't let you go without talking about your beloved Everton. How did you become a fan? And obviously you're still under relatively new owners, so what are your expectations? How much are you looking forward to the new Premier League season?
How did I become a fan? I had zero choice in the matter. All my mum's family, all my dad's family, before I was barely breathing, I was blue. If that's to put things the wrong way around. So I've been Everton all the way back. The new season, hopeful. I believe we've got the right manager in David Moyes. David took us forward last season. We were going really well, and then perhaps the shallowness of the squad meant at the final analysis we dropped away, but real quality, playing some really good football. The new stadium on its best nights is an incredible place to be, fine atmosphere. So the fundamentals are falling into place, new owners, as you say. I'm hoping they may put some investment in this summer. I'm hoping Jackie Grealish will give us one more year, at least. I hope more than one, because he was a joy to watch last year, and he brings a character that Evertonians can completely buy into. So the signs are good, but there is one thing that I would just ask: sign a right back. We need a right back. Poor old Jake can't do another season at right back. He's a good player. He's a great centre back. Buy a right back.
Buy a right back. You heard the Prime Minister there. And just lastly, I want to just do one quick fire round with you. So the answers can be one sentence, one answer, completely up to you. Where will Everton finish?
7th.
Who will win the Premier League?
Oh, City.
Do you have a favourite WSL player?
Oh, can I go Steph Horton?
Best stadium?
Hill Dickinson.
Your go-to football snack?
I don't really snack at games, although I became very attached to the Grealish donuts last year. I think my nieces bought one on occasion, so this was our attempt to raise the funds to keep Jack, given that the donuts cost about £8 a donut or something. I think it was the Grealish fund was paid for by the donuts.
Love that. Harry Kane or Gary Lineker?
Gary.
And lastly, Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us on GiveMeSport.
Thank you.
So interesting to hear from the Prime Minister there. I never thought he'd say Jackie Grealish.
He's just a football fan. That's what a lot of people like about him. He's down to earth. He's passionate. He did fantastic work, by the way, in previous roles, campaigning for injustice relating to Hillsborough. And I think that football fans can feel really confident because he's going to take a lot of his principles and his passion for football into policy, including continued work and research and funding and support for dementia that could well be related to football. And this all means that when you add his passion and the new independent football regulator, coupled with the fact that he's clearly not afraid to speak his mind, because he was quite prepared to say Gianni Infantino should not be in his current role, we have somebody that sports fans and football fans can, in my opinion anyway, really get behind.
Definitely. So great to have someone so candid. But what a brilliant piece from Sam, and great to have him on previously to say how it all came about. But the red siren is flashing, Ben, which means we've got some breaking news.
We'll speak more about Gianni Infantino and his future in just a moment, but for the breaking news first, a couple of done deals to tell you about. First of all, Mo Salah has signed his 2-year contract and is now a new Trabzonspor player. Besiktas had tried to formalise a move first, but in the end, Mo Salah choosing to go to Turkey, and he is a new Trabzonspor player. In addition to that, we've got a really big one from the summer, and that's Yan Diomande, new Real Madrid player, official according to Real Madrid, 125 million euros plus 15 million in add-ons. And one wonders whether that 140 million number might galvanise PSG to really dig in on this 170 million euros valuation for Bradley Barcola. Liverpool want Barcola. Barcola wants Liverpool and Ibrahim Mbaye, as Fabrizio Romano said, is another possibility as well. Now, elsewhere, in terms of not done deals, Briel and Bolo is drawing interest from both Napoli and Milan. Atlanta United is still there as well. And Romelu Lukaku is reportedly another player that Atlanta United are looking at. 15 million valuation, according to my information. And I just want to add a little bit more on Rodri as well. I know we asked Fabrizio Romano about the El Clasico race. My understanding, as we revealed this morning across the GMS network, is that Barcelona are favourites for Rodri and that the player has indicated he would like that move. From Manchester City's perspective, they would prefer that Rodri stays and possibly even doesn't extend if the player doesn't agree, and then has the opportunity to leave on a free transfer in 2027. But an exit, according to my information in the last few hours, is looking more and more likely, and Barcelona have moved ahead of Real Madrid in the race for Rodri.
I mean, where to begin with all that news, Ben? But first off, when you first heard about Mo Salah, was that something you expected?
Not necessarily, because I think Saudi at the beginning of the window was the direction of travel, at least for Salah to have conversations. But the mood in Saudi has changed, and they're not necessarily looking for older star names to throw big money at. Salah was supposed to be the poster boy of the Saudi Pro League in 2023, in 2024, in 2025, 1 year too late. And actually, believe it or not, no Saudi club made a new formal proposal. There was MLS interest as well, but there's money in Turkey. And from Salah's perspective, it's a relatively short-term contract, only 2 years. He might have one more move in him. It wouldn't surprise me to see Salah and MLS one day, but this just shows the ambition of Turkey and the funding to back it up. And maybe over time, their feeling is that we won't have this big 5 European leagues going forwards, and that Turkey can really muscle in and make themselves a serious player.
And we've got to talk about Yan Diomande. This has been building for so long, and he had to shut out so much noise during the World Cup. How excited are you to see him at Real Madrid?
Yeah, Yan Diomande is a statement signing. PSG were, of course, there, and for large parts of the summer were thought to be leading the race. And Nasser Al-Khalifi's got a great relationship with the Red Bull Group, and he was negotiating that one personally. But then when you learn of the fee, you start to think, okay, Liverpool's offer was 80 million and 20, and then they backed off because the player said he'd like to move to PSG. Real were not in the race at that point. And then PSG were not prepared to meet the 140 million package, of which 125 million euros is the fixed part of the fee. So Real have really paid above the odds because they backed this player on a 7-year contract to be a serious elite prospect. And I have to say, I agree, because this is going to be in Diomande, one of the future superstars in the game. And sometimes when you know that, you're prepared to overpay a little bit in fee, because maybe overall they see value in the age, in the profile, in the high ceiling. I'm sure in the wage as well. Naturally, he'll be well compensated, but not to the tune of, for example, Kylian Mbappe or Vini Jr. money. So it's just one of those transfers that everybody should get a return from. Leipzig, because of the fee, the player, because he's at an elite club, and Real Madrid, because they've got a truly two-sided winger capable of having an impact for a number of seasons to come.
When you say having an impact, it was just so obvious at the World Cup that whenever the ball was at his feet, there was just something that could happen. But I think having spent a bit of time with the Ivory Coast team out there, what really struck me was just he's so humble, but just has so much flair and excitement in his football. He plays with this freedom that I think will be quite fresh to see at Real Madrid. And speaking of someone else who had a great World Cup, we've got to talk about Rodri. Do you think Man City just have to let it go at this point?
They don't have to let it go. I mean, they've got two options. One is they sell at a premium in an inflated market, and two is they persuade the player to stay and go, you can leave on a free transfer. And if he decides to do that, he can take his pick of clubs. But this, I'm told, is not really a football decision, although naturally in picking between two clubs, Rodri will have to think about the role and the football side, but it's more family orientated. He wants to go to Spain. And as a consequence, if Pep Guardiola was in charge, I don't think that Man City, at least at a football level, would be standing in his way. Enzo Maresca's new and clearly would like Rodri. And yet, if you think about Elliot Anderson plus very likely one more midfielder with Man City working on Ayoub Buadi, they won't be that short in the centre of the park if they let him go. And it's a strange one, because if he hadn't had such an unbelievable World Cup and been player of the tournament, we might be speaking about and indifferent by his incredibly high standards domestic season, and City saying it is good value to let him go. But the fact that he showed what he's still capable of at that World Cup will mean if you're Enzo Maresca, the new Man City manager probably does want his board to back him to try and keep Rodri. But direction of travel is an exit. It's going to be very difficult for Man City to keep hold of Rodri. And as I said a moment ago, Barcelona are suddenly the favourites.
Well, look, as soon as the red alert siren goes, we've got to go for the transfer news. But let's just touch back again on that interview with the PM. What's the latest with Infantino? It's a story you've been following very closely, and so much developed since that interview that Sam did with Andy Burnham.
Yeah, I mean, the British Prime Minister Andy Burnham, and you can read this across the GMS network as well and watch it on YouTube too, had said that he thinks Gianni Infantino is, quote, the wrong man for the job. And this was when Gianni Infantino's now failed privatization plans, named FIFA Forward Enterprise, had really blown up. And obviously went as quickly as they came, much like the ill-fated European Super League. And Gianni Infantino has since been bunkered up in Morocco, trying to understand when he needs to speak and what his next move is. And in the week that Sam spoke to Burnham, we had this kind of lull from Infantino and this offensive from UEFA and CONCACAF and the General Secretary, Matthias Grafstrom, and Carlos Cadero, senior advisor to Infantino, who quit. Kevin Lamore, the COO of FIFA, saying he felt deceived. And several high-profile federations, including the English FA and the Welsh FA, withdrawing their formal endorsements for Gianni Infantino. And his world came crumbling in. But remember one thing. Gianni Infantino doesn't have it in his nature to quit. And in addition, you need 106 votes of 211 members to win a FIFA election. And if Infantino's to lose, there has to be a formal candidate to come out against him. And that hasn't happened yet. So there's a lot of games and there's a lot of politics. But Infantino has been patiently waiting to see if Victor Montagliani or another candidate rivals him. That still could happen. Or if he's got enough votes. And despite the complexities that I outline, this will come down to that one magic number. Infantino will have lost dozens, and some say up to 100 votes. But as long as he's got 106, with Africa being a strong base and Asia being the battleground, then Infantino will feel that he can fight on. Now, yesterday, it turned somewhat in Infantino's favour, because after that scathing criticism in an internal memo by the FIFA General Secretary Grafstrom, the same individual, who's the number 2 to Infantino, was part of crisis talks in Rabat in Morocco. And after those crisis talks, FIFA issued a statement that said they were positive and constructive. And Gianni Infantino and Grafstrom together, taking a united front, were not only pictured at a women's AFCON game with their thumbs up, but they wrote a joint letter to the FIFA vice presidents and the FIFA council stating that those that were in the room who form some of FIFA's senior leadership back Gianni Infantino. And now Infantino will feel that that is a catalyst that he can launch his new election campaign from. And yet UEFA are still opposed. The English FA are still opposed. And now we have to understand what the next steps are, because sources within UEFA say that they're going to do everything within their power to bring FIFA to a gridlock, including not turning up to meetings and still keeping potentially some form of tournament boycott on the table. And yet from Infantino's perspective, he's called UEFA and CONCACAF's bluff. And he's almost saying, I'm standing and you either challenge me with a candidate, and if you don't, I'll get re-elected without any competition. And that's where we're currently at.
Well, we'll all be tuning in very closely to that developing story. But from the chaos there, let's talk about the calmness at Manchester United, because it seems like everything's going pretty swimmingly in this pre-season period. But to let us know if Manchester United fans should be worried, we will be joined by Ian Irving, Talk of the Devils podcast host, to get the lowdown on their summer and the expectations for the coming season. This is Market Madness on GiveMeSport. Ian, thanks so much for joining us on Market Madness. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Now, I've heard that you recently played football with our very own Ben Jacobs.
Yes.
What's he like on the pitch? Tell us everything.
Next question, please.
You use a skip once. Go on. Has he got a bit of flair?
Yeah, and we won as well. That was the most important thing. I think it's the greatest comeback that the Stretford end has ever seen at Old Trafford, because I think we were something like 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go, and we ended up winning 4-3. So there's obviously something in the magic around that place that we managed to add to the folklore. I'm obviously joking, but yeah, we did win 4-3, and we both played our part. That's as complimentary as I can get, I think.
Well, look, hopefully sign of good things to come at Old Trafford
this
season. And look, what's happened to crisis club Manchester United? I know it's really hard to look into pre-season, but it seems like everything's going pretty well under Carrick.
Yeah, there's a calmness to it all, I suppose. Certainly internally, as far as the club are concerned, there's a calmness to it all. If you go on social media and look at Manchester United fans' reaction, or a section of fans' reaction to the summer transfer window, I'm not sure calm is the exact term for that. But yeah, the sort of the narrative around the club is certainly looking that way. And the sense that a few years ago, it was United, like you say, who were the crisis club, who seemed to be the headline makers at any given opportunity. There wasn't a quiet moment. Whereas actually at the moment, you look around the league and it's everywhere else where there seems to be noise. That's where there seems to be a lot of transfer speculation, where clubs are losing players, where clubs are spending big on players, which I guess, some Manchester United fans would want to be the case for the club. But they have a plan. Speaking to people within the club, understanding what the hierarchy are trying to do, this is intentional, that there is a calmness to it. It's intentional that they don't want to get involved when the numbers get too big, because there are significant financial pressures still associated with the club, despite getting back into the Champions League. And they need to be sensible in terms of how they move this forward. We're beginning to see changes on the wage bill. That's coming down a lot compared to how it was before. There's different ways that they're doing that at the moment as well. It still feels like there's more to do in the transfer window. I still anticipate there being maybe another couple more signings to come for United. But certainly with what's happened so far, I think when everything settles and people are calm again in their assessment of what United have done to this point, I think people will be happy. I don't anticipate there being something huge in the pipeline. But then again, I think I said that last year, and they ended up going big on Benjamin Sesko right at the end of the window. So let's see what it's still got in turn. There might be a couple of surprises.
We'll move on to more of those transfer ins and outs in a moment. But with that calmness, has that been matched in the performances in the preseason? Like we said, it's so hard to read into it. But what have you made of how they've been playing?
Yeah, I try not to read too much into it, just because it's not always been the greatest barometer down the years for how the season's going to go. But at the very least, there are some clues with Michael Carrick. Bearing in mind, this is the first pre-season that he's had as the Manchester United head coach. It's the first considered period of time that he's had to work on changing things, because even though they didn't have as many fixtures last year throughout the campaign, and there were big gaps, actually having the time to sit down with the coaching staff, I understand, over the summer and actually think about how he wants this Manchester United team to play has been important. And you are beginning to see some notable differences, certainly in how players are used in this pre-season. Now, some of that could be out of necessity because there's still a few to return from the World Cup. There's some that are back in training but not quite back in action who haven't played yet. But you're looking at maybe two or three things which I think have been the most notable things, and they are Lenny Yoro playing at right back, which is not something he's done very much for Manchester United. Now, that could be just because Diogo Dalot and Nus Mazraoui have not joined back in the action just yet. They are back in training now, but they've not been able to play just yet. Or it could be because he is looking at trying to do something which he did before at Middlesbrough, which is play more of a back three with the right back tucking in and giving the left back more license to attack. So maybe that's a clue to one way that Carrick could change things for United. Mason Mount's played deeper. There has been some talk in our podcast that might mean that United don't actually go out and buy another midfielder after getting Andre Santos and Yuri Tielemans, and that actually Mason Mount is used more in a deeper role. And I have to say, so far in pre-season, it's only pre-season. I said a sentence or two ago, I don't read too much into it. But he has looked bright. He has looked sharp. With him, crucially, in recent years, it will be the question mark over his fitness. And that's the biggest doubt that I think anyone has about Mason Mount at the moment, is whether he can stay fit for a considered length of time to be able to have a properly meaningful impact in that role in midfield. But it's been interesting how he's been used. And it's been Andre Santos who's been the deepest of the midfielders. Andre Santos undoubtedly is a step up in that regard than Casemiro. But, Carlos Baleba was linked. Aurelien Tchouameni was linked. Now, they are very different profiles to what United have got in midfield so far. But if Carrick's plan is to keep the ball more, is to become more of a possession side, then it seems like he's moved more for technical players than having those more sort of physical attributes prioritised. So there's been a few clues. The results have been fine. PSG's next, so maybe you can start to read a little bit more into that as both the teams get more and more of their World Cup players back. But undoubtedly, you only really start to judge it once the season kicks off. I remember Louis van Gaal's Manchester United being pre-season champions of every competition they played in pre-season one year and then got beat at home against Swansea City on the opening day and a disaster struck. So let's see.
Well, look, that was such good insight into where players might be positionally this season, but I guess we'll have to wait until everyone's back. But you just touched on a few of those signings there. Let's go through it. Yuri Tielemans for 35 million, Carl Darlow on a free, and then Andre Santos for 48 million have come in so far this summer. How do you feel about that business that's been done?
I think it's fine, to be honest. I found the midfield chase interesting because we expected it to go in certain directions and fans were anticipating it going in certain directions, and it's ended up going in completely different directions at times. So heading into the summer, Elliot Anderson was the name that Manchester United were looking at. The numbers, I understand, got too big. I think there was a preference there for him to move to Manchester City as well. So United looked at an alternative target, which was Mateus Fernandes. Then it transpired that those numbers were maybe too big. Obviously, in the background of this, there was the deal for the Atalanta midfielder Ederson, which was done by United to a point. And then some concerns over a second medical, which took place, meant that United then moved away from him. But almost instantly, there was a deal for Andre Santos done, and then quickly followed by Yuri Tielemans coming in. And at that point, which was probably about a month ago or so now, there was quite a lot of excitement amongst United fans. I think Yuri Tielemans is an excellent signing. He's someone who they've looked at in the past when he moved to England, first of all, then when he left Leicester to Aston Villa, less so at that point. But he's certainly a name that's been on the agenda for Manchester United at different points. He's a leader, he's experienced, he is a very smart footballer, he's tactically astute. He's the sort of player that United have needed in that role. Like I say, there still feels like maybe they are one short in the midfield. Maybe they are still short of that number 6. Now, even if Carrick does want to move to more of a possession style of play, that's fine. And obviously, a lot of United fans would welcome that. But at the same time, when you are away at the Etihad, when you are away at Anfield, or wherever else it may be, there are times where you do need to counter-punch, you do need to counter-attack. You leave spaces in midfield, you don't have the ball. And that's where it feels like United might still need more of a ground eater in midfield, more of a ball winner, someone very, very aggressive. Whether that comes or not in this window, I'm not sure. There's still talk around a left back. There's still talk around a backup striker as well. So there may be the 3 positions that still perhaps need a bit of attention. But in terms of what they've done, and the early signs of Andre Santos in midfield certainly has looked all right.
Well, look, Ian, if you could wave your magic wand, who would you want to bring into that midfield?
That's an interesting question. I do think more of a ball-winning midfielder, like I've said before. I don't know exactly who that should be in terms of having a magic wand or a wish list of any description. I more trust in the process of the people there to decide what sort of profile they think is needed in that role. I've actually liked the idea of Miles Lewis-Skelly actually from Arsenal, purely because it kind of solves 2 problems for United, in that they need a left back to compete and back up Luke Shaw. And obviously he's done that role in the Arsenal first team very well, but they also do need this midfielder as well. And I've been so impressed by him when he's played for Arsenal in midfield. Obviously started the Champions League final last season as well. I don't know if that's a deal that can be done, but he's English. He's got Premier League experience. He's young. There's a lot of potential there as well. And obviously, in theory, you're weakening a rival, taking him away from Arsenal as well. So I feel like he would be a good addition. In terms of, more of a headline signing, Aurelien Tchouameni is the name that many Manchester United fans have been clamouring for across this summer. There's been different reports at times, which has made it sound like it's been achievable, and then other reports where it feels like it's gone away a little bit more. And Rodri's future, I guess, is linked to this a little bit. And the latest reports by my colleagues on The Athletic say that it's actually Barcelona now who seem to be pushing more than Real Madrid for the Manchester City midfielder. So that would mean that Tchouameni is more likely, I guess, to stay in Madrid. I think the numbers are huge anyway. I think there's a frustration amongst Manchester United fans that they can't be involved in these big money deals, that they've had to walk away from Anderson and Fernandes. But unfortunately, with the debt situation at the club, with the ownership structure and the issues that that's caused with the Glazer families, purchased of the club all those years ago, it's still causing the problems now. And until they get back to a position where they can be in the Champions League season after season, where they can get back to the top table in English and European football, then they're going to have to cut the cloth accordingly, as frustrating as that is for supporters.
Well, look, potentially some more incomings then, but let's look on the other side of it. Going the other way, we've got the likes of Onana, who's out on loan, Casemiro left on a free, Højlund, £44 million you got for him, and Sancho also on a free. Apart from Casemiro, I think it's safe to say that those signings didn't quite work out. So are you sort of happy to see them go?
Well, I guess you have to be pleased that the squad is being reshaped, because certainly the names that you mentioned there, Casemiro aside, didn't achieve what you'd expect them to achieve at Manchester United. And unfortunately, you can add quite a few names to that list that you gave as well of signings in recent years, which haven't really worked the way that Manchester United intended at the time. Some of those names are from previous regimes, previous hierarchies. So I guess the new base would point more to the deals that have been done in recent times. This summer, Patrick Dorgu, last summer, of course, as well, when Sesko and Bumo and Cunha and Lamans all came in. And you have to say they were all very successful purchases in their first years at Old Trafford. They need to follow it up. Hopefully there's even better to come from them in this campaign. And obviously the demand now of having the Champions League and European football means that there's a little bit more demand on these players than last year. But you'd like to think that having that first season under their belt, the relative success they had of getting back into the Champions League and sort of recovering from the point when Michael Carrick took temporary charge will be a benefit, I think, as well. But yeah, the issue for United is it's very difficult to sell these players as well when they've been unsuccessful at Old Trafford. The wage issue has been a problem over the years as well, because they've been attracted by strong wage packages. Not so much in the case of Rasmus Højlund, who's on screen there, but certainly with Jadon Sancho, certainly with Andre Onana. And you basically had an issue with United selling players for a long time. And even in this summer, there's been a lot that's been affected by the inability to sell players. So I think heading into the summer, we expected Manuel Ugarte to move on. He's obviously had his injury during the World Cup and will now stay at United. Marcus Rashford looked for the world to be going to Barcelona, and that has not happened on a permanent deal. They then had the backup option of a 40 million release clause, which then wasn't taken out by any club either. You've also got Joshua Zirkzee, who there's question marks about his future. You mentioned Onana. He's been loaned, not sold. It sounds like Altay Bayındır will be loaned, not sold. And unfortunately, with these players who have not hit the heights at Old Trafford, it's made them less appealing to other clubs. So you have got a problem with moving them on. And that's the price of people not being successful. So if you speak to people at the club, they'll say they're still trying to right the wrongs of the past. And little by little, they hope to get back to a point where, you know, the deals can be successful, the prices can go up, the wages can recover a little bit, and it can help to make Manchester United successful again. This is their plan, at least.
You just mentioned him there. It's a talking point that I don't think I even need to put into a question. Just 2 words: Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, isn't it? And I can see both sides of the argument. I can see the argument, which is you would have never expected Marcus Rashford to be back in a Manchester United shirt this season. He may still not be in a Manchester United shirt this season. He's not back yet. He's due back, I think, next week. And his first pre-season game he could be involved with would be against AC Milan, who are now, of course, managed by Ruben Amorim. So that would be an interesting twist to Rashford's return. A lot happened before he left for the initial loan spell to Aston Villa. There was big question marks over his attitude, his professionalism, certainly from supporters inside the ground. There was very little tolerance left for the way he was playing and applying himself for Manchester United. And I have to say, I thought that was it for him, really. I thought that the last time he saw him, which incredibly is now, I think, 19 months ago, when United were playing in the Champions League at Victoria Pilsen, he was taken off early in that game. And, you know, for all this time, despite only leaving on loans to Aston Villa and Barcelona, I was sure that he wouldn't play for United again. Now, it looks like the most likely scenario is that he will be reintegrated to the Manchester United squad. Like I say, that could happen as quickly as next week. And I suppose the flip side of that is you get a player back who looks like he's in a completely different headspace to 2 years ago, to a player who's shown his qualities once again for England during the World Cup, but certainly at Barcelona last year and in moments for Aston Villa too. Someone who, you know, he's not far off a Manchester United legend in some ways. Obviously, the situation around him in the last couple of years has almost destroyed any sense that he could be that. But I suppose if he comes back, if he looks rejuvenated and he finds his best form again for Manchester United, he's only a handful of goals away from the club's all-time top scorers. He's about 100 appearances away from the top 10 all-time appearance makers for United as well. And what a story it would be for him to come back and have a renaissance at Old Trafford, an academy graduate, a lad that grew up a Manchester United fan, all the things that made him great to begin with. If he can sort of rekindle that and refine that, it would be quite a story. On the other side, you feel like it's going to be a huge task to ensure that there's a platform for him to do that he's in the right place to do that. What sort of role he even has, I suppose. Would he be a starter? Would he be an impact player? Is he going to be used on the left? Is he going to be used as a backup centre forward? Even his number. He was a number 10. Mateus Cunha wears a number 10 now. So, you know, what number does he wear? I know it's a minor thing, but it just shows how his place at United had sort of been replaced, really, by what they'd done. So, it's going to be an absolutely fascinating story. And the other factor within this, Michael Carrick, does he need it? I don't know. Does he need the constant scrutiny and questioning of what happens with Rashford, whether he plays, whether he doesn't play, if he's involved, if he's not involved, if he's playing well, if he's playing badly, because of his profile, because of the history that he's had at Old Trafford in recent times? Does Carrick need the constant questioning on that? I don't know, but he knows him well. He was on the field when Rashford made his debut for United in 2016. He's managed him before when he had that temporary spell in charge after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer left, and coached him as well between those two periods. So they know each other well. And clearly, if Carrick is on board with this and he feels he can get something out of Rashford again, then the club will have to back him in this scenario if no one wants to come in and offer him a route away.
There are definitely going to be so many eyes on his return. But just looking ahead to the new season, we're not that far away from it now. To bring it all together, what are you expecting from this new campaign?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because we started this talking about how calm things were at United and how different it was to the past. And then as the conversation's gone on, there's definitely positives and there's definitely negatives to the situation at the moment. What I expect is that there will be a pressure on Carrick to pick up where he left off last season. The second half of last season was so good, so much improved to what we'd seen before, but there was always a sense that it was not temporary. He was a temporary boss, but there was always a sense that it was like a holding pattern to the summer. And then you get to the summer, there's more chance to work on things. There's more chance for him to present his vision to the players, to the fans, to the Premier League, really, and then see where we go from there. The one thing I didn't anticipate is that there'd be so many changes elsewhere. And there's a record-breaking number of managers set to be taking charge of their first Premier League games for their new teams at the start of this season. It's something like 9 managers. I think it's unprecedented. It's never been that many before on the opening day. And can United take advantage of that? Can they use the relative stability that they've got? I mean, it's mad to think that Carrick's only been in place for a matter of months, and yet he's something like the 8th longest serving manager from the bosses who were in charge in the Premier League last year. So, yeah, they need to continue to be a Champions League team for the reasons I've given throughout this last few minutes. They need to get back to being a stable side who aren't yo-yoing between the top 4 and out of it. They need to be a team who are challenging again for the top honours, not going out to Grimsby Town in the first round or the second round, whatever it was, of the League Cup. They need to be back on a stable footing, really. And they need to pick up, like I say, from where they left off last year. If Carrick's going to develop things in style, that might need a little bit of patience at the start, but they've got Hull and Ipswich in the first 2 games. You expect them to make a strong start and then see where it takes them. I think it's a bit early to be thinking about, challenging for titles or anything like that. But they certainly do need to be more stable in those top positions, and they need to show that they are more capable of controlling matches, of winning matches on a regular basis throughout the season, with the extra demand of having European football. They barely played 40 matches, I think it was, in the end last season. This time around, they want it to be more like 55, 60 if they can be a success in the different cup competitions. And obviously then this squad being able to compete and show consistency in that environment is a challenge, is something different. But it's where United need to be if they want to get back to anything like they were before. But it's step by step. That's the message that's coming from inside the club. And I guess considering it's been so up and down across the last decade and a half, you have to accept that if there's a plan, you've got to show some sort of faith in it, really, and see what happens.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ian, for all of your insight into Manchester United. And you can follow Ian on X at Ian Irving _. You can also listen to and watch him on the Talk of the Devils podcast. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. Ben, my alarm is flashing for one final time today, which means you must have some breaking news for us.
Yeah, let's start again with a done deal, and it's another wonderful signing, in my opinion, for Bournemouth. João Luis Sanchez has joined from Sevilla, 5-year contract, according to my information, 11 million euros plus 2 million in potential add-ons. And just to kind of add to this picture, this is a top young signing with more big potential, 100 plus games for Sevilla, still only 22 years of age, Champions League experience. And then more broadly, João Luis' arrival means that Bournemouth have now spent about £50 million or 60 million euros. And sources have told me that Bournemouth feel their squad is now about 90% complete for Marco Rosa, with European football to look forward to. And the intent remains still for Alex Scott to stay. Chelsea had a £64 million bid rejected a couple of weeks back, as I exclusively revealed. Ryan, release clause isn't active until 2027. And Junior Krupi, unfortunately injured, but Bournemouth were adamant, even when he was fit, that he's going absolutely nowhere. And then some more information on Iliman Ndiaye. Maybe if the Prime Minister Andy Burnham is still watching, he needs to turn away, because what I can tell you is that interest is growing in the Everton attacker. And even though Everton's intent is still to get Ndiaye to sign a new deal, no progress yet. We have Al Hilal, who have made an approach. The player hasn't yet fully opened the door to Saudi Arabia. Manchester United have got the player as one option if Marcus Rashford was to depart. And Ndiaye has been discussed by Arsenal as well, which is significant potentially, because Arsenal have gone all in on Vini Jr. We are still waiting for the player's final decision, but Real Madrid are confident. Now, if Vini Jr. extends, Arsenal need backups, and Junior Krupi was one option, injured and unavailable. Julian Alvarez is the dream target. And yet ultimately, Atletico Madrid may decide not to sell, and Barcelona is the player's preference. But you never know. If the door opens slightly to Atleti selling outside of La Liga, Arsenal could be there. But Ndiaye is another name appreciated by Arsenal. So Ndiaye's future between now and the end of the window is one to watch. Everton trying to extend, Saudi trying to persuade, and Premier League clubs alert to an opportunity in the final 3 weeks of the window.
Prime Minister, if you're still watching, I'm sorry it wasn't the news you'd hoped for, but we will keep you posted of any developments at right back.
He wants a right back, by the way, and we should have maybe asked him about Jed Spence, because Spence wants this starting spot. And at the moment at Tottenham, you got Pedro Porro, new contract one side, and Destiny Udogie, big future on the other. And Roberto De Zerbi, watching Jed Spence at the World Cup, would love him to stay. But it's a bit like Lucas Bergvall. These are two players that want to play every single week if they can. And Everton and Inter have both looked at Jed Spence over the course of the last few weeks. I know we hear a lot about Liverpool, but as Fabrizio Romano said, at the moment, it's more like the player would be open. Same for Man United. Players looking at options, players exploring the market. But these are not yet clubs from within the Premier League, with the exception of Everton, that have made a definitive move yet. And I actually think if Everton went for Jed Spence and could persuade him, that would be a fantastic signing.
There we go then. Some positive news to close out for Prime Minister Andy Burnham. Ben, thanks so much. That's it for this week's Market Madness, and a huge thank you to all the guests that joined us this week. We'll be back again next week. But until then, you can listen back on your podcast app of choice. Just search for Market Madness. And for more information on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, just head to GiveMeSport.com. See you next time.